It might be Sam Bradford's team come the fall, but the summer belongs to Carson Wentz. Mike Owens is here. I'm Adrian Fedke. Training camp is a week away. It's almost here. Oh my God.
Man, finally, right? We sit here today, July 19th. We're almost there. Eagles report to camp next week. The anticipation and excitement is building here in Philadelphia. The past few weeks, we've really kind of shifted gears to the Sixers. Everyone's been kind of paying attention to Ben Simmons and watching his summer league games and watching all the great passes that he's making. But I kind of feel like once we get back in the training camp here with the Eagles, the transition will go back to the Birds and we'll be focusing on them. And, a lot of talk here with training camp coming up. Obviously, everybody is going to be focused on the quarterback position and with Bradford and then Chase Daniel, then Carson Wentz. But there's really some other spots on the field that the Eagles have to worry about.
Yeah, we'll get into all that. Obviously, we'll start with Wentz here because that's what everybody's going to want to talk about. And, well, here's the thing. I mean, everybody's been critiquing every little thing that Ben Simmons has been doing in the summer league, and it's going to be the same thing with Wentz. I mean, I just hope that, the same thing kind of doesn't happen with Wentz as it did with Simmons, because some people have already not that they've like given up or anything on Simmons, but there is some hesitation with some fans because he's not scoring.
Yeah, well, people like to criticize a little bit too much sometimes. With Simmons, I would rather having him, dish the ball out the way he's doing it right now. He doesn't really need to put up the points. He's better at dishing it out. So really, when you get these star players like this high in a draft, you really want them to just go out there, play to their abilities, and play their game. So, we're going to, look forward to that with Carson Wentz. Hopefully he can really use his athletic ability in this system and really use that deep ball that we've kind of seen already in the OTAs. And with the quarterback position, it's no shocker that Bradford is going to be the starter week one. And I'm not sure why this has gained so much traction over the last few weeks here, but for some reason it's a story that Carson Wentz is going to be inactive week one. Obviously, Wentz is going to be inactive if he's a third-string quarterback. So kind of bizarre to me that this has even been a story.
Well, people are dumb. So that's what it is. And they over-dramatize and they overthink. But, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the only way Carson Wentz is going to play this year is if somebody if both guys get hurt or we fall out of contention real quick. I mean, say they're like 1-7, 2-6 at that 8-game mark, you're going to see Carson Wentz in there. At least I would think so. So even if Sam Bradford gets hurt, Chase Daniel's going to play, and that's just what it is. All right, so let's get into Wentz just a little bit further. What are you looking for with him during training camp, preseason, shit like that?
Yeah, well, Wentz, what I really want to see is just see how he's picking up the offense. We had reports in OTAs that it seemed like Wentz was picking up the offense faster than Bradford was. And this is, when we look at the quarterbacks here in training camp, really what we're going to be comparing is Bradford to Wentz because Chase Daniel already knows the system. So really, Bradford and Wentz, they started out at the same starting line. So I want to see who's picking up the offense faster. I mean, it is possible that Wentz could pick up this offense faster because he's a bright guy. And, that's the reports that we heard during OTA. So that's what I really want to see. And also with Wentz, I just want to see him improve every day. And, and if he's really, he's playing well and he's improving every day, I'll definitely be jumping on the bandwagon to see him midway through the season.
Well, to be honest with you, I would start him from the beginning. I don't give a fuck about Sam Bradford, but I understand why they're doing that. But that's just me. I don't give a fuck if his confidence gets shattered because I think he has the mental makeup to, kind of go through with it. But here's what I'm looking for. I want to see the deep ball, baby. I want to see the sexy. I want to see the sexiness. I want to see him throw, the bomb, the deep post. I want to see that deep out pattern, that 18-yard deep out to the sideline. I want to see that. I want to see the ball come out of his hand with velocity and accuracy. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to see that. We're probably not going to see much of him scrambling, or not scrambling, but that kind of zone read type of play in the preseason. You're not going to get too much, see too much with the play calling because, well, it's the preseason. You're going to see like basic kind of packages, basic type of plays. You don't want to tip your hand too much if you're Doug Peterson, obviously. So, I want to see the deep ball. Now, moving on to kind of Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel, it'll be interesting because, well, obviously Bradford last year had a great preseason, 10 for 10 against Green Bay, 3 touchdowns. We all remember that. Then he kind of started the season really, really, really slow. It'll be interesting to see how he handles training camp because he kind of knows that he's a lamed up quarterback. He knows that he's a stopgap. So where's his head going to be at? We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you talk about Bradford, that's the biggest thing is where is his head going to be at? Because if it's not in the right place, it could be a disaster for him. When the Eagles have the open practices at the link, he's going to get booed. Preseason comes around, he's going to get booed, and Carson Wentz is going to be the fan favorite. So Bradford did not help his case at all by causing such a fuss in the offseason about wanting to be traded. He really should have not even made a fuss at all. If he didn't make a fuss, people wouldn't have a problem with Bradford. I know that, me and you personally, we never really had a problem with Bradford. If he didn't say anything in the offseason, we would probably be fine with him being the starting quarterback week 1. But just the way that he acted, he really turned people the wrong way here in Philadelphia. So I think that, not only does he have an upfield battle on the field learning the new offense, but he's also got an upfield battle with the fans.
Yeah, basically what the offseason proved is how mentally fragile he is. And as a quarterback, you can't be thin-skinned. You can't let that kind of shit get to you. So because, the reality of the situation is this. If Sam Bradford killed it this year, I've made this point before, if he kills it this year, throws like 35 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns or whatever, he's going to be your starter next year. It's not going to be Carson Wentz, but, he's already behind the 8 ball with that. He's fucked. He's done. He's going to get traded. I don't see how he can kind of rebound from this because of how his mental makeup is. All right, let's move on to running backs. Now, this is interesting because if Ryan Matthews gets hurt, well, then what? Because there's not too much depth behind him.
Yeah, then we run into a situation. Doug Peterson, he dealt with it last year in Kansas City when they lost Charles there when he went down with an ACL injury. So, then they kind of went with a combination effort there in the backfield. And here in Philadelphia, it's really going to be a, combination effort, even with Matthews as the number 1 guy. They're really going to rotate Matthews. You got Kenyon Barner, and then you got Darren Sproles. And then after that, you got, Smallwood, who they drafted in the 5th round. So we'll see how much playing time that Smallwood gets. But, I don't really, with Ryan Matthews, when he's healthy and he's playing well, he's definitely starting running back in this league, and he can be very serviceable. The problem is his health. And, last year it's, a hamstring or whatever it is during the game. It acts up and then he has to come out. And I just don't think that the Eagles are going to be able to rely on a guy like Kenyon Barner. I just, I don't think he doesn't have the firepower to be able to come in and really be a starting running back in this league.
Yeah, because if Matthews gets hurt, the thing with Darren Sproles, as much of a weapon he is, he's not going to get like more than 10 carries in a game. That's just, not the way he's built. I'm really curious to see this hype around Wendell Smallwood because a lot of people are hyping him up. The beat writers are saying how excellent he looks in gym shorts, the slashing ability, the cutting ability, the jump cutting, all that shit. But here's the thing where you got to kind of cool your jets a little bit, because I remember when there was a rookie named Casey Matthews that came in here, lit it up in OTAs, and he was terrible. So I don't get overhyped about some shit like that. Ja'Cory Shepard last year got a lot of hype in the OTAs and in the voluntary practices, and then obviously he got hurt. I haven't heard a peep from him since. So again, it's like Curtis Marsh too. He's another guy. So shit. Let's see what he can do in the preseason, but I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket. That's for sure, for a 5th-round pick. I'll tell you that. Now, we're not going to see this in the preseason probably because, again, like I was saying before, you don't want to tip your hand too much as to what you want to do offensively. But I want to see how Sproles and how Smallwood are going to be utilized in the backfield catching the ball, because this is not Ryan Matthews' strong suit. Ryan Matthews has probably the worst hands in the league out of any running backs. So how are they going to utilize Smallwood? How are they going to utilize Darren Sproles? Because looking at the tape from last year, the running backs, man, they were lining up as wide receivers. They were lining up in the slot. I'm talking about Kansas City and Doug Peterson. So be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it there with a guy like Sproles. I think that you're going to see him lining up as a wide receiver, lining up in the slot. You're going to see him really all over the place because he is such a weapon. And, really with Sproles, under Chip Kelly, it's interesting that we didn't see him more because he's really, you would think a perfect weapon for a guy like Chip Kelly to have. The one that, probably Sproles' best game as an Eagle, you go back and you think about that Colts game, Indianapolis. Was that Chip Kelly's first year here?
That was second year. Yeah, because that was that second game of the year, and that was the game that we shouldn't have won, but we did.
We did, yeah. So I think you go back and you look at a game like that. I mean, that's how you really want to utilize Sproles. I mean, utilize him to his abilities. You throw him the ball out of the backfield. So yeah, we'll see what they do. But I think when you look at Smallwood during the regular season, he's probably not even going to be active that much because if you already have Matthews, Bonner, and Sproles, probably only going to address those 3 guys at running back.
Well, it'll be interesting to see who wins that 3rd running back job because, maybe maybe Smallwood does beat out Barner. You don't know. We don't know yet. So, we haven't seen Smallwood play yet. But again, it's like, you don't want to get too overhyped up because I'm in this Facebook group with somebody named Teron Davenport from the USA Today, and that's what he was just like. He's like, this kid is special, man. All this shit. I'm like, we'll see, man. We'll see. I mean, you got to remember, you saw him in gym shorts, okay? Like, relax, okay? But we'll see. Yeah, do you think they keep 4 running backs on this team?
Yeah, well, I think that they're going to because they think that, Sproles pretty much, he's going to count as a special teams guy too. So if you're just looking at the, pure running backs, they would probably keep the Matthews, Barner, and then you would have Smallwood.
Yeah. Now, if Smallwood is as good as they say he was in the OTAs, I do think he'll beat out Barner for that 3rd spot. But, I don't think by any means he's going to be ahead of Sproles. So that's not going to happen. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. Obviously, Jordan Matthews is the leader of the band, but he needs a backup singer. And who's that backup singer going to be?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's Nelson Aguilar. This has to be the season that he breaks out. Last year, very disappointing for him being a 1st-round pick. Really, absolutely, he did very little last season. So for a guy with his speed, really need him to produce this season. And, really in order for these wide receivers to have some success this season, they really need Aguilar to step up. So he's got to be that guy. And then you hope that, he could even put up around, 700 yards. Because then if you add Ruben Randall into the mix, hopefully he can add a nice chunk of change too. So you get a veteran guy like Randall in there. Hopefully that'll help some. And, Randall, he really doesn't have that much experience in the league, but all of a sudden he kind of becomes a veteran of these wide receiver corps because outside of that, then you're looking at a guy like Josh Huff, who's very young too. So, very young wide receivers. So they're really going to have to look up to guys like Randall and then, Chris Givens.
Aguilar is definitely the name I'm most intrigued by. I think he's the biggest X factor at wide receiver heading into the year because, well, he was just so bad last year. He was ranked 121 out of 121 in Pro Football Focus's wide receiver rankings. I think the guy to watch out for who will wind up being the second best receiver on this team is probably Randall. Randall's a guy, he's not like super explosive. He makes plays in traffic. That's kind of what he's known for. He's got some pretty good hands. He didn't have that many drops last year. He's not super like athletic or anything. The problem with him is his inconsistency. So we might see him have like 3-game stretches where he gets like 400 yards and then he's silent for 4 weeks. So that's what you're going to kind of get from him. And that's basically a main reason why the Giants found him to be expendable. Josh Huff is a guy that I'm basically giving up on already. I mean, he's shown the flash. He catches that slant. He could take it 20 yards. But then the next play, he either drops the ball or he fumbles.
Yeah, Josh Huff, really, not too many exciting images that we have of him. We have more blunders from Josh Huff in his career than we have highlights. His highlight is pretty much catching that ball last season against the Saints and, running untouched down the sideline. No one was near him because he was wide open and doing a somersault into the end zone like a jackass. So I don't think you can expect much from Josh Huff. But like you were saying, going back to Randall, you hit it right on the head there. With Randall, you're really going to get the inconsistent play. You're going to get a few games where he shines. And he's kind of done that as a Giant against the Eagles a few times where he's had big games, but then he'll disappear the next week. So that's why when you look at these wide receivers, you know what you're going to get from Jordan Matthews. He's going to be a consistent performer. But that's why they need Aguilar to step up. And they need Aguilar to score touchdowns. So, and they also need Aguilar to kind of become somewhat of a deep threat.
Yeah. Tight ends, we don't really need to get too much into the tight ends. We had a video about Zach Ertz. So basically all we would say is probably the same shit that we said in that video. So if you want to hear about the tight ends, watch that video. There's not really much to discuss except maybe Trey Burton and seeing where he plays, lines up, maybe play a little fullback. But moving on to the offensive line, we need a left guard. And because, everything else is pretty much solidified. You got Brandon Brooks. He's going to play right guard. Kelsey the center. You're going to have the tackles, Jason Peter and Lane Johnson. So you're going to have a big battle between, like, Wisniewski. You got Sayumalu. You got Alan Barbary. And who's the other one? Gardner. So you got, like, four guys fighting for that left guard spot. Basically the same thing as last year.
Yeah, it really is. The only difference is that at least this season, the Eagles, did a nice job of kind of getting some depth along that offensive line. I think one of the additions that kind of goes unlooked right now is the addition of Wisniewski. I think that he's a versatile guy. He can really play, the guard or the center position, and even down the road, depending on what happens with Kelsey and how well he performs this season, Wisniewski's a guy that they could plug in at center down the line. But he's even a guy that could compete and battle with Barbary for that left guard position. So and then we'll see how Wale develops during his rookie season, and maybe halfway through the season he can be eventually starting there. But I think for right now, it's Barbrary's job to lose.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think Gardner is like the sneaky player to watch because I thought he actually performed fairly well those first couple games before he got hurt. Because Everybody was shitting on our guards the first like month of the year, but I didn't think he was like terrible. Now the thing that I'm curious to see is Kelsey and how he handles being a center and more of a power style of running, because obviously he's always been kind of a finesse guy, pulling on that pull sweep with Chip and getting that inside zone going. So he's the guy I'm concerned. Can he move big boys backwards? So that's what I want to see in training camp and in the preseason.
Yeah, and with Kelsey, I guess what you gotta hope for is that since they have added some depth and some better players along that offensive line, that maybe if he's better, he's got some better guards now. Really mentioning there, Brandon Brooks. So with Brooks, doesn't have to worry about as much as trying to pick up his game for inferior talent at the guard position. So they have better talent along the guard position. So we'll see if that helps Kelsey this year. But as far as the whole offensive scheme goes with Doug Peterson, I don't think that Kelsey is really the ideal fit. I think that he can still do an adequate job and play well because he is an athletic guy and he's a good center, but I don't think that he's really the guy that you would pick to have your center in this system.
Yeah, that's a good point you make with Brooks and how he's going to kind of help out, because even when Kelsey had Evan Mathis and Todd Herremans here, obviously he was a lot more effective. It does make a difference when you play with better talent alongside you, obviously. So we shall see. Moving on to the defense, the big bad boys of the defense and Jim Schwartz. We're going to start with the defensive line. Obviously, we know what we have in Fletcher Cox and Benny Logan, but I'm curious to see. Well, we got a couple things here because Vinny Curry is now in his more natural position, playing a 4-3 defensive end. Connor Barwin moves from a 3-4 outside linebacker, standing up as a rusher, to now having a hand on the ground. So I'm curious to see how he plays. And by God, are we actually going to get something out of Marcus Smith?
Yeah, God, geez, Marcus Smith. Yeah, I don't think that we should be getting our hopes up for him. I think that Marcus Smith, he might get maybe 2 or 3 sacks this season, but I think that's the most that we can expect from him. But yeah, you look at the defensive line, and I think the one guy that I'm actually really going to be keeping an eye on is Brandon Graham, because now Brandon Graham is really going to be able to come in and play that the natural position, playing as a defensive end in a 4-3 system. So I want to see how Brandon Graham does and see if he can really play consistent football for a whole season. And then, like you mentioned, the other side, on the other side of the defensive line with Vinny Curry. Can Vinny Curry live up to all the money that we gave him? Probably not. So I don't think that people should really have that high expectations for Vinny Curry. I think he's going to perform. But the problem is with Vinny Curry is he's a guy that's kind of always struggled against the run. So you might not see him out there in running situations.
Yeah, that's a good point with Vinny Curry. Everyone kind of looks at his sack numbers and people forget he's not really that good against the run. So we need to see some improvements in that in training camp and in the preseason. We'll see how he kind of handles the run and playing the edge there. Another guy, who I'm really interested to see, and this is a name that no one's talking about. It's Mike Martin. Mike Martin has always impressed me when he's been in Tennessee, and quite frankly, he has kind of starting type of talent. And he's a name that nobody's talking about, but I think he can make an impact.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Mike Martin, it was like such an under the radar signing. It came after the flurry of when all the top free agents got signed. So obviously he was in the lower tier. So people kind of really don't recognize those type of players. But I think that really with him, and then this goes along with another guy that I'm going to talk about is Bo Allen. They're both type of guys that can come in and really start if needed. So to have those two types of guys being backups along your defensive line. I think that's why, this defensive line, it can be one of the best defensive lines in football, is not only because of the starters, but because of the depth that they have along the defensive line.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. A lot of depth there. And a place where we don't have a lot of depth, linebacker. And, we got a trio of pretty good starters. Nigel Bradham, Michael Kendricks, Jordan Hicks. But here's the thing. Neither of those three have ever gotten through a season without getting hurt. So with that being said, there is really nobody behind them, at least nobody that's proven. There's some guys that are getting some hype. Mike Tavares, Quentin Gauss is getting some hype. But these guys need to perform in the preseason. We'll see. I mean, again, the gym shorts are off. They got their pads on and helmets on now.
Yeah, I mean, going into this season, linebacker is a spot on this team that I am very fearful of. And you even look at our starters, and each one of them has a question mark next to them, and it has to deal with injuries. Can they stay healthy? And the guy in the middle is the one that matters the most. If Jordan Hicks goes down, he's a guy that's irreplaceable. We saw it last year when he kind of jumped onto the scene and really made a name for himself and really became the leader of the defense. And after he got hurt, the defense kind of fell apart. And so I think that Jordan Hicks is the guy that you have to worry about the most, about him staying healthy. And, and then Bradham too, injury past, and also with Kendricks. Can Kendricks kind of regain his form from a few years ago and be that, dominant player running sideline to sideline? Can we get that out of him again? So that's what you got to look at. But, yeah, really behind those three guys, it's just a bunch of guys, really. No one special at all. So the guy that's been here really the longest is Najee Good. So we would really be relying on him if something happened, and that's scary.
Yeah, there's six guys, and I want to see, two of them emerge. I just want to see somebody emerge that can at least kind of hold down the fort while somebody gets hurt. Like, if somebody's out for a couple games, maybe they can kind of fill in just adequately. Adequately is the word I'm looking for. You don't need to be good. You don't have to be great. Just kind of just hold your own and be okay. So, yeah, so that you got six guys here. You got Quentin Gauss, you got Najee Good, Deontay Skinner, Mike Tavares, Joe Walker, Travis Long. So I want to see two guys emerge. Deontay Skinner was actually a guy that I thought had a pretty good preseason last year, but I don't think he made the team. I think he might have been a practice squad player.
Yeah, I think you're right. Skinner is actually a guy to, possibly keep an eye on because he could have a good training camp. We'll see. And he's got some experience in the league. So he's a guy to keep an eye on him. And then obviously Najee Good with the experience. But besides that, everyone's kind of been talking about Mike Tavares. We'll see if, he can translate his game. It's really a big jump that he's making here playing. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, linebacker, a big concern for the Eagles.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I've been hearing, people from Twitter, too. It's like, wow. Mike Tavares, Quentin Gauss, they look pretty good in the OTA. So, they should be able to fill in. Guys had, these guys were undrafted for a reason. Relax, again, people, relax. All right, cornerbacks. Cornerbacks might be the most wide open competition in terms of who's going to be starting. You got the trio probably of McKelvin, Rowe, and Carroll. So two of those guys are going to be your starters. Rowe is most likely going to start, I would think, and then you got McKelvin and Carroll. So you would think those are your starters right there, right?
Yeah, I would think that those are going to be the starters right there. We go from linebacker where the depth is very minimal. Then we go to the cornerback, which probably the deepest spot on our team right now. But I don't say that with confidence because it's probably the deepest spot on our team with a question mark because there's a lot of guys here that we have that have shown, flashes of greatness, but they've still got a lot to prove. And it's also a very young group that we have here at the cornerback spot too. So, and injury past. You look at, last year. So, Nolan Carroll, he's coming off that season-ending injury. Is he going to be able to be the same player that he was from last year after suffering that injury? And we don't know. And I think that McKelvin, he's also a big question mark. People have kind of penciled him in as being a starter here. Well, he's not. He wasn't a guy that was really lighting it up in Buffalo. He's really just an average guy. So you hope that he can come in and be that type of player here. But we're not sure. And then behind guys like that, you look at guys like Ja'Cory Shepherd. He was really shining in training camp last year, and then he ended up with that injury. Denzel Rice, he's a guy that was kind of a star training camp last year. Saw the field a little bit last season, but he was more of a training camp type of guy. Ja'Cory Shepherd, talked about him and the injury last year. So, we'll see. We still have, Jalen Watkins. He's still on the team. He can play some cornerback. But, these are guys that still have a lot of question marks, and we don't know how they can really perform in this league. So I think as far as the starters go, we're good with the starters, but if we have to, go beyond that, then it could be a challenge.
Yeah, I'm hoping that because Leotis McKelvin's best season came under Jim Schwartz, and I'm hoping that translates into this year. That's what we can hope for. Doug Peterson did say during, again, practicing in Jim Schwartz, but he did say that McKelvin has looked the best so far out of everybody. So hopefully, McKelvin and Rowe, they can start. I guess Ron Brooks will be your nickel cornerback. Maybe him or Nolan Carroll. We shall see. Some other guys, you got Blake Countess, was a six-round pick. And another name that's been getting a lot of hype is Jalen Mills. So now he's the guy that would have been like a maybe even second-round pick, but third-round, fourth-round pick had it not been for the off-the-field issues. So he's a guy that I'm curious to see. But here's the thing, too. It takes a while for a rookie cornerback to kind of get going. So to think that he's going to be a big contributor, I don't really see it. Although I think he's a guy that might pan out because I do like him. He's going to play some safety. He can maybe play some cornerback too. So we shall see. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at McKelvin and Rowe starting, and I'm really, really hoping that the success that he had under Schwartz that continues.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like you said, we'll see with Jalen Mills. I mean, if it all pans out and Mills does well in training camp, I mean, hopefully he's a guy that they can plug in there on game day in a backup role if they need him, because like we're talking about some of the depth that they have here, and it's depth, but it's not the greatest depth. It's actually we're talking about guys like Ja'Cory Shepherd. And these are the guys that we've also got. Randall Evans is another guy that we forgot to mention. We drafted him last year too, and so we've actually spent a lot of draft picks on cornerbacks. But the problem is we've spent draft picks in the later rounds on them. So these guys aren't top tier talent. That's why when you talk about a guy like Jalen Mills, who probably, went later in the draft because of some off the field issues, you hope that, maybe he could develop into a starter someday.
Yeah. Now, something that, like a low-key thing that's not really that important, but it is, that people aren't talking about is our depth behind Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod, because we don't really have a third safety, at least not somebody that's really great. You got Ed Reynolds, you got Chris Maragos. Jalen Mills can play that kind of hybrid, either cornerback or safety. So I'm hoping to see somebody emerge. Apparently Jalen Watkins is playing safety now, so maybe he can be a guy. I want to see who can be that guy that can be that third safety in training camp and preseason.
Yeah, you talk about the safety spot, and yeah, I mean we've got some pretty good starters there at the safety position, but like you said, the depth is an issue too, because I mean we've seen Chris Maragros, guy, outstanding special teams player, but the guy is just he's not a good safety in this league. He's not a guy that you want to have to rely on.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully, somebody else can step up. Ed Reynolds, we saw him do really well in the preseason last year, but it just doesn't translate over to the regular season. Yeah, so if I mean those two safeties, if Jenkins or McLeod goes down, then we run into another situation where we don't have quality players to back them up.
Yeah. Just to move on to special teams really quick, the only thing to really discuss here is there's a kicking battle between Cody Parkey and Caleb Sturgis. I hope Caleb Sturgis does not win this job.
Oh man, yeah. If Caleb Sturgis wins this job, I will not be a happy camper. I do not like the guy. I like Cody Parkey a lot better. So I would be pretty surprised if Caleb Sturgis wins this job. I mean, how can you not go with Parkey after the season that he put up 2 years ago?
Yeah, we shall see. Now, other than that, there's not really much more to discuss. I guess we could talk really quickly about this post that I wrote today. Howie Roseman got named the worst general manager in the NFL.
Yeah, it must be Chip Kelly must be creating that list or something there in San Francisco. So obviously, Chip Kelly and Howie Roseman were not the best of friends. So definitely Chip Kelly was behind that production now. But I mean, for me, even though I'm not a big fan of Roseman, I can't put him at the bottom of that list. I think he's definitely down near the bottom, but he's not at the very bottom. He has a lot to prove, but I will say, so far he's done a nice job for him to be able to move up from number 13 to number 2 in this draft, get our franchise quarterback, and also to be able to get rid of the big contracts that we had with Alonzo and Murray and Maxwell. Very impressive. But the thing with Roseman going forward is going to be him and his, the drafting, how well he does in the draft. And really that will determine if he does move to the bottom of that list.
Yeah, it's all about the draft because this offseason highlighted all of his strengths. He's good at handling the contracts and backloading deals and kind of maneuvering around the draft. That's what his strengths are. His weaknesses, always drafting guys. He doesn't draft well at all. And, well, that's what he's going to have to do the next couple of years. We're not going to have a lot of money to spend. So he's going to have to hit in the draft. You don't even have a first-round pick next year. So he's going to have to pluck starters in those middle rounds. That's going to be key. So we shall see. I mean, even to take it a little step further, I mean, you look at Benny Logan, you're probably not going to be able to resign him. So are they going to be able to find a defensive tackle that can play alongside Fletcher Cox? So obviously Cox makes it a lot easier for that defensive tackle. But, he's got a lot to prove. He has not won my heart. It takes a while to win me. I play hard to get. So that's my opinion on that. I don't think he's the worst, but maybe he's like 31st.
Yeah, no, like you were saying, I think, the big thing with Roseman is, going forward, he's going to have to be able to hit on these first, second, third, and fourth round picks. And especially, not having a number 1 next year, he's going to have to really hit on the first few picks that we have next year. So you got to hit in these early rounds because if you miss, it can really set you back. I mean, geez, it's been rumored, and even Howie Roseman admitted it, that the Marcus Smith pick was his pick. So, You can't have too many mistakes like that down the road. In fact, now going forward, you can't have another mistake like that. You just can't miss on a first-round pick like that. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see about this year's draft. We really won't be able to, grade it for another few years. But yeah, with me and you, he's still got a lot to prove, and we'll see. But so far in this offseason, he's done a nice job.
Hey, if you want to take the positive spin on it, it's like, we don't have a first round pick next year, but we basically haven't had first round picks in years before because Marcus Smith stinks and Danny Watkins. I mean, Jesus, fuck, like who would take a fucking fireman in the first round?
Yeah, well, you know who.
That's the thing about Howie, man. He gets cute. He gets cute with shit. And stop being cute. But yeah, so we'll pretty much end it here. Any final thoughts before we get out?
Yeah, I guess I'm just ready for training camp, and but really, I guess that the one thing that I'm really looking forward to is the preseason. In fact, I gotta say that I think that I might be more excited for the preseason and watching Carson Wentz than I am for the regular season, because I kind of have an idea what's going to happen here in the regular season. I don't really have that high of expectations for the regular season. But really, I think that the guy that I'm going to be watching is our man Carson Wentz, and really just watching his development.
Oh, yeah, I cannot wait to watch Carson Wentz. All 4 games, he's going to be playing. Oh, man, hopefully he gets, like, the whole second half. I want to see him. He's the shiny new toy. I also can't wait to get to a practice. Now, we'll be doing that again, I'm sure. So, yeah, so we'll be doing that. Yeah, can't wait, man. So that's it for this show. For Mike Owens, I'm Adrian Fedke. Just from judging, I need to shave, man. That's a lot of cheek fur. That's too much cheek fur. And yeah, clearly I have too much chest hair as well. I should wax that shit. We're out. Later.
Later.